Takai. Chapter 3. The Jedi Temple stood tall and proud, its spires gleaming in the midday sun. From the cockpit viewport, Kukuri watched as they drew closer to her home. Landing inside the hangar, she and Donwi collected their belongings and stepped off the ramp.
I'm gonna go practice in the training grounds if that's okay, Master.
Very well. Go on. I need to give my report. Be careful, Kukuri. That's no training saber you have. Kukuri nodded and bowed.
I will, Master. Don't worry.
Running through the temple halls, Kukuri ran to her quarters, changing into her training gear and looking with a smile at the training saber on her desk. She wouldn't be needing that anymore. Heading out the door, she ran down the steps towards the temple training grounds, running nearly full sprint. She was so eager to test out her lightsaber that she blindly turned the corner and collided with another Jedi Padawan. The two young Jedi grunted as their heads bounced off each other and they collapsed backwards.
Ow! Kukuri!
Kukuri groaned and rubbed her aching forehead.
Ow! Hi, Dravok.
Dravok stood and dusted off his tunic.
Watch where you're going, will ya?
Kukuri stood and straightened her hair.
Sheesh. Sorry, Cryroll.
Dravok glared at her.
Why don't you say that to me again?
The two were suddenly separated by two large hands as Master Elan stepped between them.
Easy, young ones. We're all friends here. I'm sure Kukuri didn't mean it.
Dravok huffed and rolled his eyes as Elan looked down at Kukuri.
And Kukuri, do be careful where you're going.
Yes, Master Elan. Sorry, Dravok.
There. That's better. Where are you off to in such a hurry, Kukuri?
Kukuri smiled and showed him her lightsaber.
Off to the training grounds. I finally built my lightsaber.
Well, how about that?
Elan smiled.
It looks just like your master's.
Yeah. I'm gonna set up a few training remotes and practice.
Dravok smirked a bit.
Training remotes? What are you, a youngling?
Elan looked in disapproval at his apprentice.
The great ones practice the fundamentals, Cyrol. I expect a better attitude from my pupil.
Dravok sighed.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Elan smiled.
There now. All is forgiven. Cyrol, why don't you and Kukuri go train together? I have to speak to Master Donwi. Remember not to get too out of control.
Dravok and Kukuri bowed to Master Elan and went to the training grounds. Kukuri didn't have many friends her age within the temple. The closest she had to one was Cyrol, whom she normally referred to by his last name. Their masters had always been close friends, so when they came of age, they were introduced to each other. Their first meeting had been less than ideal. Dravok had made fun of her white hair, asking if she was an old lady, and Kukuri responded in kind by kicking him in his shin. Still, as much as she and Dravok didn't get along with each other, she could at least hold a conversation with him for a short time before it inevitably resulted in throwing insults back and forth. Dravok looked over at her lightsaber attached to her belt as it glimmered in the late afternoon light.
So, you finally have your own, huh?
Kukuri nodded.
Yeah. It feels great not to have to go back to the stupid training sabers.
Dravok chuckled.
Yeah, I know what you mean. When we come across real threats, we're gonna need real weapons.
Stepping into the training grounds, Dravok went to a metal chest and opened it, setting up some training remotes.
So where did you guys go?
Dravok adjusted the settings on the remotes.
Nakata. Master Elan told me what happened there. I feel so bad for him.
Master Donwi told me his people used to be a very proud race. Is he really the last one?
From what he told me, yeah. He doesn't seem too bothered by it, though. At least he doesn't show it. Let's get started.
The remotes flew into the air and spiraled around the two Jedi Padawans as they stepped in the center of the training circle.
You set them on low power, right?
Dravok smirked and activated his lightsaber, shining with a deep blue blade.
You think a bounty hunter's gonna set his blaster to low power?
Kukuri narrowed her eyes and activated her silvery blue blade, taking a Form 4 stance.
You honestly think any bounty hunter would be stupid enough to take on a Jedi?
Don't get so high and mighty, Kukuri. You're a Padawan. If you aren't careful, you're easy prey.
Kukuri focused on the remotes as they began to fire bolts of energy toward her, Quickly, she deflected a few shots and sent them off into the stone floor where they fizzled out.
I'm not easy prey, Dravok. You're a Padawan too, you know.
Dravok deflected one of the shots back into one of the remotes, deactivating it.
Who was it that got their lightsaber first again? I think I know a little more than you do.
Kukuri rolled her eyes in annoyance and moved forward, blocking 2 blasts back into one of the remotes and smiling in satisfaction.
Ha! Did you see that, Dravok?
As her back was turned, she was struck in the back of the leg with one of the bolts, causing her to yelp in pain. Dravok smirked a bit.
Better keep your focus, Kukuri.
Growling in frustration, Kukuri deflected a few more shots from the remotes, and looking to Dravok, deep in concentration, Kukuri grinned mischievously and deflected one of the shots and redirected it into Dravok's backside as the young man shouted in pain and turned angrily to Kukuri, who was chuckling.
Keep your focus, Cry-Roll.
Dravok used the force and shoved the remotes against the wall, causing them to short-circuit and clatter to the floor.
You think this is funny, princess?
It's a little funny.
Dravok stepped closer.
Why don't you try something like that again and see what happens?
And what are you gonna do about it if I do?
Before the two of them could go any further, they heard a small wooden tapping sound and turned to see Master Yoda approaching, stepping around one of the broken training remotes.
Padawans? A problem is there?
Kukuri looked to the wise master and bowed.
Apologies, Master Yoda. We were just training.
Right. Just got a bit out of control.
Yoda sighed and shook his head.
Hostility I can feel between the two of you. Yes? Why?
Kukuri and Dravok looked at each other.
I guess we just got a little competitive.
Competitive? Over your skills?
Dravok and Kukuri nodded as Yoda chuckled and walked over to them.
Come, follow.
Yoda started walking from the training grounds towards the temple gardens as Dravok and Kukuri shrugged and followed behind him. Yoda stepped onto the grass, gently touching the budding leaves of a few of the plants as he did so.
Master? Are we in trouble?
Yoda chuckled.
No, not in trouble, are you? A learning experience this will be.
Yoda led the Padawans to a spot in the garden with 2 small plants, one red and one white.
Bukarai. Very delicate they are. And very different.
Yoda stepped over to the white plant.
The white Bukarai thrives in sunlight. Feed off the light and warmth it does. If left in the shadows, wither it will.
Yoda then gestured to the red plant.
The red Bukarai. In the shade it grows, sensitive to the sun. If left in the sunlight, dry up it will, and waste away.
Dravok looked at Kukuri in confusion.
What's this have to do with our training?
Yoda smiled.
If together both plants are kept, feed each other, they do. Nutrients from the white Bukarai protect the red from the effects of the sunlight, and the red supplies the white with nutrients that feed it when gone from the sky the sun is.
Kukuri and Dravok looked at the 2 plants as the sun shone onto their leaves.
If apart, survive they will under the right circumstances. If together, thrive and grow, their flowers will.
Yoda pointed to Dravok.
A quick temper you have, Cairo. Impatient, but a strong mind you have, and a desire to prove yourself.
Yoda looked then to Kukuri.
Pride you take, Kukuri, in your studies. Eager to learn, yes, but proud and stubborn you can be.
Kukuri and Dravok looked to each other, and then back to Yoda.
The key to everything balance is. Like the Bukarai, very different are they. Very different are the two of you. Harmony and unity you must find. If work together, you will. Understand you must your strengths and weaknesses both. If wise Jedi you wish to become.
So, how do we start?
Reconciliation I have found to be a good start when learning to work together. Let go of your animosity and start anew.
Kukuri looked to Dravok and sighed.
Okay. Dravok? Kyrol. I'm sorry I made fun of your name and made the training droid hit you.
Dravok grumbled a bit and scratched the back of his neck.
It's fine. Sorry I got so hot-headed back there. Even if you kind of deserved it.
Yoda raised an eyebrow to Dravok, who cleared his throat.
But still, I'm sorry.
Kukuri nodded and smiled.
I forgive you.
Now, off you go, Padawans. Continue with your practice.
Kukuri and Dravok bowed to Master Yoda and returned to the training grounds. Meanwhile, Donwi sat in a comfortable chair across from Elan inside his friend's quarters, admiring the decorations on the walls. You've added a few new trinkets, I see. Elan chuckled and poured 2 cups of tea, one substantially larger than the other.
You call them trinkets, Donway. I call them pieces of history.
Donwi gratefully took the cup. You know, some members of the council would see this as a form of attachment, or at the very least hoarding.
Well, Bean Me has certain privileges. Besides, many of these items would not have seen good homes had I not gotten a hold of them. That urn over there was in the hands of a man using it as a waste bucket when I found it. I'd prefer it sit where it can be appreciated, rather than defiled.
Understandable. I'll say one thing, Elan. You definitely have a better eye for decoration than myself. Elan smiled and held a bowl of small purple candies out to Donwi.
Gushu drop?
Don't mind if I do. Donwi grabbed one of the candies and rolled it between his fingers. Your trip went well, then?
Most definitely. Kyrol seems to have found the trip quite enlightening.
You told him about the Nolly rug, then? Elan clasped the large porcelain cup in his hands.
Yes. Kyrol has a good heart. He was saddened to hear about what happened.
Have you shown him your work yet? Elan shook his head.
Not yet. The council were wary enough about issuing me a holocron to record my research as it is. For now, I'd rather keep it a private matter. One day, I'll show him.
Understood. Donwi sipped his tea, as Elan did the same.
How was Ilum? I ran into Kukuri earlier. Well, she technically ran into Kyrol, but I digress. That lightsaber of hers looks quite familiar.
Donwi smiled and clinked his fingertips against his cup. Yes. She said she wanted it to look like mine. She's growing so fast.
Such is the way of life. Human beings are quite a peculiar species, aren't they? One day they're a child crawling on the floor. The next they're on their way to adulthood.
Yes. I've done my best to teach her what I know, but sometimes I wonder if it's not enough. Elan looked at Donwi as he set his cup down.
It doesn't do well to dwell on such things, Donway. Kukuri is one of the most studious Padawans I've come across in nearly 200 years. She's like a sponge, absorbing everything you teach her to one day put to good use. Besides, she's very fond of you. You're doing just fine, old friend.
Donwi smiled a bit and nodded. Thank you. Here's to our students, then. May they grow wiser and stronger than either of us. Elan raised his cup.
Hear, hear.
As the hour passed, Kukuri and Dravok were busy picking up the damaged training remotes and putting them back into the metal crate. Kukuri looked over to Dravok.
Master Yoda is right. We're on the same side after all. We shouldn't be fighting like children.
Dravok shrugged and lifted the crate onto a wooden shelf beside the training circle.
He's usually right about this kind of stuff. Sorry again.
It's okay. Where are you off to?
I'm heading to bed. It's been a long day. You?
I guess I'll go check in with Master Donway and see what he thinks I should do.
Dravok put on his robe and dusted off his hands on his tunic.
Okay then. See you around, I guess.
See ya.
Kukuri grabbed her lightsaber and attached it to her belt before tidying her hair and walking back inside the temple halls. As she walked, she caught sight of Master Donwi speaking to another master wearing an elegant cape. "Kukuri, come." Kukuri nodded and joined her master's side. "I've been meaning to introduce you to someone for a while. Kukuri, this is Master Dooku." Kukuri looked to the tall, imposing man and bowed respectfully. His gaze was piercing, as though he was staring right through her.
Hello, Master Dooku. It's an honor to meet you.
Dooku smiled softly and bowed his head in respect.
"The pleasure is mine, young one. Master Donwi speaks quite highly of you."
Kukuri smiled brightly.
I would hope so.
Donwi patted Kukuri's shoulder. "Kukuri here just crafted her lightsaber today. Kukuri?" Kukuri nodded and removed her lightsaber from her belt, handing it to Dooku, who carefully examined the hilt.
"Very impressive, Padawan. A significant milestone in your Jedi path."
Dooku handed the lightsaber back to Kukuri, who bowed her head in reverence.
"Where are you off to now, may I ask?"
I was actually looking for Master Donwi. I finished my exercises. Is there anything else I can do?
Donwi smiled. "I think you've had a big enough day as it is, Kukuri. The rest of the afternoon is yours. Be on your way now. I have some things to discuss with Master Dooku."
Okay. It was a pleasure to meet you, Master Dooku.
Kukuri bowed and ran off down the halls of the temple.
"You've raised a very obedient student, Donwi. Sometimes I wish Qui-Gon were that disciplined."
"It comes with growing up. I'm sure you weren't always so easy to deal with for Master Yoda." Dooku chuckled.
"Indeed. Back to the matter at hand, however. It's come to my attention that Bala Shud has been stirring up trouble in the Outer Rim."
Donwi looked to Dooku with concern. "Bala Shud? I thought he was imprisoned on Cyvaria."
"He was. But you know how difficult it can be to keep a crime lord imprisoned. Even one as low on the food chain as Bala Shud."
Donwi shook his head in disgust. "That miserable hut. Do we have any leads on him?"
"Not at the present time. Though I hardly believe this to be a matter with which to concern ourselves at the moment. If I hear anything more, I'll be sure to inform you."
Donwi nodded. "Thank you. You know where to find me." The two masters bowed and went on their way. Inside her quarters, Kukuri looked into the mirror and brushed her silvery white hair. When she had finished, she retrieved her journal from her bedside and began to recount the day's experiences. It wasn't long before her eyelids began to feel heavy, and she shut the blinds on her window and relaxed in her bed. Soon, she fell asleep, eager for the next day.